What's up, Real World Podcast audience? On the phone with us, I have a guest, and I want this young lady to tell my Real World Podcast audience who you are.
All right. Well, first of all, my name is Orta. Who I am is I am a mother with a very interesting story. I'm not just an inmate. How far do you want me to tell you?
I want us to tell us how long. So far, you've been in prison now for what? How long you been in there for? 16 years?
17 years.
17 years. Okay.
17. Yep.
17. Okay. Now, within the 17 years of you being in prison, what have you been doing with yourself? Have you just been sitting around, getting in trouble? What have you been? Been taking classes? What is it that you've been doing? Share that with our audience.
Okay, well, the first 5 years of my sentence, I definitely was pretty much doing the same thing that I did on the streets. Getting into trouble, getting into fights, different things like that. I didn't really do drugs or anything, experimented with pills here and there, but, that wasn't really my jam. After about 5 years of getting into trouble, I realized that this really wasn't the route that I wanted to go, so I started taking groups and reading self-help books. And that started to open up different doors for me. So for the past, let's say 12 years, I have, become a certified personal trainer and a certified sports nutritionist through ISSA. And I actually started a fitness group here back in 2017. And we have a volunteer that comes in from the outside she owns her own gym in Columbus. So she comes in and she works with us and helps train like other people that wants to do, personal training. So I'm like the lead instructor here. So that's like my current passion right now. But I've also taken horticulture. I was an apprentice for horticulture where I got 3 different certifications. So I am a master gardener technician. I've done building maintenance. I've got my forklift, skid steer, aerial lift license, my HVAC license. I've done tons of different entrepreneur classes, college courses, sociology, all kinds of different random things. I just recently went to a Justice League training where I was in an intense 3-day-long training on how to be peer advisor within the institution to help people get their stories out with their cases, fight for their rights within the system and outside of the system. And I've also done a lot of classes for suicide prevention and for youth and youth mental health, because when I originally got involved in the state, I was 12 years old. So it started at a very young age for me. So my passion is to help those that are on their way to where I am today.
Great.
And I continue to do things. I'm also an institutional artist. There's 2 of us, as a matter of fact.
Great.
And I am the president of the Life Group, which is a group of lifers. I'm the president, so I think that sums it up.
Great. Now, one moment the media could be your enemy, and then the next minute the media could be your friend. So I've seen in certain instances that you are in the media, you're in the newspaper, and they're writing good articles about you. Is this true?
All right, yeah, definitely.
Most definitely. Now, I saw it, but I want the audience to know here, coming from you, as being true. I don't want them to just say, Rel is just, going on and saying it's true, and she didn't say it was true. But okay, now Erica, we got to talk about a situation that happened August the 30th of 2004. It happened with your mother, and this is why you are in prison right now today. Am I right or wrong?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, Erica. Now, the things I'm going to ask you is what I've seen in the media, and I want you, to clear it up. If it's right, if it's wrong, I want you to, just let us know, the Real World Podcast family, your side of the truth. Because, we don't want to bend nothing. We don't want to twist it. We want it directly coming from you. Is that good?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Well, let's roll right off into it, Miss Erica. Now, Erica, like I said, on August the 30th, 2004, did Mr. Joseph Williams and yourself drive from Lima, Ohio with the intent to kill your mother, Miss Diane Atkins?
Not with the intent, absolutely not. But yes, we did drive there.
Okay. Now, what was the reasoning that you guys drove there?
Okay, so I was living in Lima at the time. I'd been there for about 6 months. My father had just passed away. My mother and I had a very rocky relationship. I ended up moving there with a friend who had introduced me to Joe Williams, actually. I was selling crack, smoking crack, into that lifestyle or whatever. I ended up staying for a little while, and probably about 6 months down the road, I was just tired of it. I didn't want to be there anymore. I just didn't want to live that way. And I had asked Joe at the time if he would take me back to Defiance, because my mom was really the only person that I really had any type of relationship with. The rest of my family, they were all like rich and high and mighty and just really didn't have anything to do with us. And my mom, you know what I'm saying, I miss her. I love my mom. I always wanted a relationship with her. It just never happened that way. So I asked him if he would take me back so I could see if she would let me stay there. So that's how we ended up there in the first place. There was never any intent whatsoever, nothing like that.
Okay. Once again, that's why I always go to the source for the
Right.
truth, for their side of the truth, because police work is guesswork, and the media goes off of the police guesswork and what the prosecutors give them to report.
Yeah, and the question, that I told them, because at first they tried to say that, it was planned, and I told them, I was like, well, here's the thing. I grew up on the streets, and I've done some things, I've hurt some people, I'm not even going to lie. But if I'm going to plan to kill somebody, I'm definitely not going to do it by strangling them. That was my thing. Like, well, I never really understood why they thought that I intended to do that.
Right, because that's like a crime of passion in the heat of the moment type thing, and that has been proven in a lot of situations. Now,
Absolutely.
Okay. Now I have another question I have to ask you. Now, is it true that you and Mr. Williams stopped at a supermarket along the way to buy a roll of duct tape?
Okay, so yes, as a matter of fact, we stopped, I want to say it was at Walmart before we ever went to her house. He had one of his friend's mom's cars, and it was one of those convertible.
This call is originating from an Ohio correctional facility and may be recorded and monitored.
Had like the vinyl top to it. In the corner of the back window was already duct tape, but it was flapping, and it started flapping on our way to Defiance. So he told me to show him where the Walmart was, because he wanted to stop there and get some tape so we could tape that window back.
Okay.
But so we ended up using the tape in the crime, which they made it sound like we stopped there purposely for it, and that wasn't the case at all.
Okay. Now, when you guys arrived at the home of Miss Atkins, in the police report, they say there was words exchanged. Is that true? And if so, what words was exchanged, and why were they exchanged?
Okay, so when we first got there, so my mom, she was an alcoholic, and the only way, she would go to bed at like 8 o'clock, so the only way to get her attention was to knock on her bedroom window. So that's what I did. That's what I've always done. It was just always our thing. Now mind you, I hadn't talked to her in like 6 months, so I didn't really know if she was going to answer or not. Well, she did. She ended up coming out to the driveway and, asked what I was doing, and I told her, I come to talk to her. And she actually let me in the house, and I asked her, I said, well, I have a friend with me, do you mind if he comes? And she said, yeah, sure, whatever. So Joe comes in there with me, and we sit down at the table, and I ask her how she's doing, and she tells me that she's filing bankruptcy, that her health isn't the greatest because she was a diabetic, and that she had quit using drugs and everything. And the moment that she told me that, I was super excited, because drugs was always the problem. She was the first person I ever did drugs with, and it was the issue in our relationship as an adult for me. So when she told me that, I'm thinking like, oh my God, I'm in luck. My mom is probably going to let me stay with her. We can have a relationship, blah, blah, blah. So she tells me all of this, and, I just asked her some random question like how she's been, what she's been doing, and she tells me. Well, then I had asked her if she had seen my kids, and, she told me she saw them at the grocery store or whatever, and so there was like a, little brief pause, because I was getting ready to ask her if I could come stay with her, but I had to get the balls first to do it. So I did, because I was so nervous. So in that moment, she had asked me if I had a hit. And I told her I didn't come there for that. And she was talking about crack. And my co-defendant was black. So anytime that I ever brought a black guy there, she always thought that, you know what I'm saying, that it was about drugs or whatever, which in the past was the case. So it was a good assumption. But I told her, I said, I didn't come here for that, Mom, and I thought you quit using and all of that. And she went Jekyll and Hyde on me. The other side came out. She started cussing at me, talking about, I don't know why you even came, and you ain't changed, and blah, 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 and just started saying all of this stuff. And I looked at Joe, and I just had tears in my eyes, and she just kept going on. And she had said something about my dad. And the last thing I knew was I jumped up, I grabbed her, I ended up blacking out, and that's when I strangled her. So the words that took place, I don't know exactly what they're talking about, but I think it was probably that exchange that they were referring to.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I do. Oh, the last thing that I said to her, I remember when I was on top of her before I blacked out, my hands were on her shoulders, and I was crying, and she was laying there, and I said, Mom, why couldn't you just love me? And she said, I do love you, and that's the last thing I remember.
Okay, so as you reached over and jumped over the table, and you just grabbed her, and you were blacked out as you were strangling her. Okay.
Well, when I grabbed her, she was sitting in the chair. We were sitting at the kitchen table.
Okay.
And I jumped up and I grabbed like her shoulders.
Okay.
And we fell down on the floor. And then when I strangled her, it was in another room, and I don't remember that. That's where I blacked out. When I came back to was when I was on top of her, and we were in a completely different room. It was next to the kitchen.
Okay.
I don't know how we got there, though.
Okay. I'm glad you cleared
This
that up.
call is originating from an Ohio correctional facility and may be recorded and monitored.
I'm glad that you cleared that up because I don't want it to seem as I'm saying some things that are wrong, and I want everything to be right as you
Right.
telling your truth. You know what I'm saying? So just work with me here. If I say something
Absolutely.
wrong, let's clear it up and let's get it right. Okay.
I will.
Okay, good deal. Now, you early on you just said that you and your mother you did drugs together, and the first time you ever did drugs was with your mother. What drug
Absolutely.
What drug was that, if you don't mind me asking?
Okay, so the first hard drug that I did with my mom was crack. I did it with both of my parents, for real. But, okay, so I take that back. The first time that I did drugs was weed, but I never considered that drugs because I was raised to believe that because my parents grew and sold weed, so I never considered that a drug. So the actual first drug I did was weed, but it wasn't with my mom. The first hard drug I did was coke. I snorted coke with my mom and crack.
Okay.
Yeah, my mother was the one that actually introduced me to crack. I thought it was a big city thing. I didn't even think it existed in my town, didn't know anything about it. Oh, yeah, that was the first time, because both of my parents were big drug users. My dad was a little bit more in the closet with it. My mom was, she tried to hide some of it from me, but not really. You know what I'm saying?
Okay. Now, would you say that you and your mother had a great relationship, or a in-between relationship, or it was a bad relationship?
We had a terrible relationship. Terrible. I wouldn't even really consider it a relationship for real.
Okay.
And that was like a lot of my problems growing up because I never understood. I had friends who were so close to their mothers, so I had this idea of what I thought a mother-daughter relationship was supposed to be, and it just never was like that. But now I understand why.
Okay.
This call is originating from an Ohio correctional facility and may be recorded and monitored.
Okay. Now, after your mother was dead, is it true that you took the jewelry off of her body, and when you were arrested wearing your mother's jewelry? Is that true?
Okay, so here's the thing. So yes and no.
Okay.
Now, first of all, when I was arrested, they arrested me with a fake diamond tennis bracelet on that my co-defendant had given me probably several weeks before that. He had robbed somebody that I did not know at the time until after I caught this case. But he had robbed somebody prior to that and stolen a bunch of stuff, and he had given me that as a gift. I didn't know it then, though. Okay, so when I came back to and realized what was actually going on, something told me to take the jewelry off of her body and hide it. And that is exactly what I did. That what they didn't put in the paper was that the jewelry was still found in the house. I hid it in a jewelry box that my grandmother had given me when I was a child, and I put it underneath my mother's undergarments in her dresser. And I know why I did it now, but at the time, I didn't. It was just this intuition that I was supposed to do this. Well, after the fact, I realized my co-defendant had stolen things from her house while this was taking place, and I found that out when I was already in county. But they didn't tell him that they found the jewelry in the house.
Okay. See, now that's why it's always I go directly to the source and let the source tell their side of the truth, because reading newspaper articles and listening to news clips and telling your story that away, that's to me, that's tacky, and that's just it's laziness. Yeah. Put in the work and go to the source and find out the exact truth of what happened from the source.
Yep.
No, okay.
Absolutely. And I even got into an argument with the investigators at the time because they kept saying that it was my mother's bracelet, and
This call is originating from an Ohio correctional facility and may be recorded and monitored.
Mother was very particular about her jewelry, and she would never, ever in life wear anything fake. And they could have asked anybody in the family that. Like, she had, jewelry worth a lot of money. That was just her thing. And the bracelet was extremely fake. I mean, anybody could have seen that. So that was my thing there. I actually argued with the investigators about it. They also tried to say that I had her clothes on, too, and that wasn't the case.
Okay. Now, while all this was going on, what was Mr. Williams doing?
I actually forgot that he was even there, because with everything happening, it was just so surreal to me that it was like I was in some type of nightmare. So I didn't even realize that he was even anywhere in the house until I understood what was happening with my mom. I didn't even realize that she was even dead. And then when all of it came, to life for me, I'm like, oh my God, Joe. So I go outside. Well, I look for him in the house, and he wasn't anywhere around, so I thought he had left me. But he was standing outside smoking a cigarette, and he was standing outside the house, and I didn't know it at first. I walked out the door, and I'm like, Joe, and he tells me to shh, don't say my name, and I go around the corner, and he's standing there smoking a cigarette.
So did he witness this, or he was outside the entire time smoking a cigarette?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. Okay, so actually, my assumption is that he was rummaging through the house while this was going on, because he had stolen a big jewelry box, an older one that my mom had. She had her old jewelry and some of my grandma's jewelry in there. And so when we got back to his house, he had a pillowcase that he had put in the car with me that I didn't even know. Well, he had me go get it. And when I opened this pillowcase, there was a jewelry box in there, her cell phone, and her checkbook. No, the checkbook wasn't in there. It was her cell phone, and there was something else. I don't remember what it was. It wasn't a checkbook. I didn't know anything about the checkbook until after the fact when I got arrested. But he had stolen some of her jewelry. And I think that's where they tried to say the jewelry off of her body was that, but it wasn't the same jewelry. It was old jewelry that she didn't wear anymore. And I tried to get it back from him because I didn't understand why he had taken it, because he had acted like he was scared and couldn't believe what happened had happened, and it was just, I don't know. And I realized, oh my God, this dude is, what I'm saying, he stole my mom's stuff. And he ended up taking off, and I never saw him again after that.
Okay. Well, now the jury sent things make sense since you just described it. Okay. Tell us, how did you move the body? How did you guys remove the body from the home?
Okay, so, I couldn't do it by myself. And my intentions for it was, I wanted to call the cops was probably, the fourth thing on my mind. But seriously, when something like that happens, that really isn't your first thought. It's not. I don't care what anybody says. If you haven't been in that situation, it's just not your first thought. I wanted to bury her. I wanted to give her a proper burial, because, even though that I had done this, I felt extremely bad and that she was owed that. So I wanted him to help me move her, and I wanted to find a place, to bury her. I didn't have any plans or anything. I didn't know what I was going to do. I was just, going by the moment. So he said that he wasn't going to help me, and I pretty much begged him. And then finally he was like, all right. He was like, well, hold on. And he went outside and he got the duct tape. So that's where they are trying to link the duct tape with the store saying that it was premeditated. So he went and got the duct tape and he taped her ankles and her wrists together. And then we both picked her up and put her in the car. And another strange thing is what I didn't even realize in that moment was so he didn't want to put her in his car because clearly he didn't want to be linked to it or anything. So I had to use her car, and he had the keys already. Because I told him, I was like, well, I got to find the keys. He was like, I got them. And he had them already. And it didn't strike me as odd until, I started thinking about it months down the road, but it was already too late. But he had already had the keys to her car. So we ended up putting her in her car.
Okay. Now, Miss Orta, is it true that you guys put your mother's deceased body in the trunk and you drove that car while Mr. Williams drove in the car that you guys drove together in Defiance County? Is that true?
Yes, that is true.
Okay. Now, while you was doing this drive, your mother's dead body was in the back of the trunk. What was going through your mind? Were you scared? What was just really going through your mind that your mother's body was in this trunk and you was driving her car?
I was tripping. Like, it was still a very, very surreal experience for me. Like, there were moments that came and went that it was like I was, living a reality, but then at the same time, it was unreal. It was absolutely unreal. And the whole way there, it was almost like mentally I was in a...
This call is originating from an Ohio correctional facility and may be recorded and monitored.
Mentally, I was like in a bubble, and my conscience was eating me alive. There was a couple times where I actually pulled over. There was one time I pulled over and actually looked in the trunk because I thought that she was kicking the trunk like she was still alive, and I panicked. So I pulled over, and I popped the trunk because I thought that she was alive, but she wasn't. But my conscience was eating me so much that I was hallucinating. There were so many thoughts. A lot of it was like, oh my God, I can't believe it's real. Like, I just didn't realize that it was real.
After abandoning your mother's car with her body in the trunk, Mr. Williams and yourself drove back to Lima, Ohio. What was the ride like driving back?
Okay, so we didn't abandon the car just yet. So,
Okay.
All right, so we drove back. I drove my mother's car. He drove his car. That's kind of where we left off last time.
Right.
Now, I wasn't too familiar with Lima like that, so we stopped at a gas station as soon as we got into Lima. Matter of fact, the gas station was right across from the Lima prison. I remember that. Mm-hmm. And he told me to stop there so he could tell me where to go next. Mm-hmm. So when we pulled in... he told me to just follow him to his house, is what it was. So on the way to his house, he actually got pulled over because there was a license plate light out on his car. Well, when he got pulled over, we were like right around the corner from his house. So I ended up just driving around the corner in his house, to his house, pulled in the back parking lot. And then he pulled in shortly after me. We went inside. So when we got inside, actually I went in the house before he did, and I waited on him. So when we're in there, he had a buddy, his name was Spanky, and I was in there with him. I wasn't really talking a whole lot. You could probably tell that I was nervous. I was obviously acting very strange, so Spanky had asked me what was going on, and I told him, I'll talk to him later about it. So Joe ended up coming in the house, and when he got in there, he told me to go get the pillowcase out of the car and meet him upstairs. So I didn't know what he was talking about, and he told me it's in the front seat. Well, it was in the front seat of the car, of my mother's car, the entire time. I didn't even realize that it was there. So I went out and I got it, had no idea what was in it, brought it in the house, and went upstairs into his room like he told me to. So when we get up there, he I asked him, I'm like, what are we going to do? Da, 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 da. And he wouldn't even talk to me for real. He took the pillowcase and...
This call is originating from an Ohio correctional facility and may be recorded and monitored.
Emptied it out on the bed, and when he emptied it, I saw my mother's old jewelry box and her cell phone, and I instantly was pissed. And he grabbed the box, and he had opened it and started grabbing the jewelry that was out of it. And the only thing that I remember was a ring that was my grandmother's that my mom actually gave to me, but I gave back to her so I wouldn't lose it. And he was putting these rings on the ends of his fingers, and I tried to snatch it from him, and he pulled his arm away from me, and he told me he told me I owed him that, is exactly what he said. So we argued for a little bit or whatever, and then I left alone. I started crying, and I, asked him, what are we going to do? And he was like, well, I don't know what you're going to do. He was like, but I'm out of here. And he left, and I never seen him after that. So now I'm worried because I have no idea what I'm going to do. I don't know Lima like that, so I didn't even know where to go. So I went downstairs and I talked to Spanky, and I told him what was going on because it was his house. And I felt like he should know because he was on parole, and I didn't want him to get in any kind of trouble or whatever. And him and I were kind of close. Mm-hmm. So I had told him the situation, and he pretty much was like, hey, listen, I don't want involved, whatever. I respected that. So I only knew one other person, and it was, we called him White Boy Corey. And him and I was kind of cool. I'd only known him for a couple months or whatever, so I had called him, and I was like, hey, listen, I need your help. And he was like, all right, come pick me up. So I took the car, and I went to pick him up, and I told him the situation, and I told him that I needed help. I said that I wanted a barrier, and he's pretty much like, all right, whatever. Well, I don't know if he didn't believe what was going on or what, but we pulled into his house, and he just kind of took it as a joke, and it wasn't funny to me. He was just kind of like laughing or whatever, and I'm like, this shit ain't funny, man. I didn't understand why he was laughing because it was a very serious matter to me. Well, he asked me, he was like, well, where's she at? And I told him, I'm like, she's in the trunk. And I had told him that before, but he obviously didn't believe me. So he was like, well, let me see. So I popped the trunk, and I didn't even open it far enough because I didn't want to see. But I had opened it, and I remember him looking, and then I hurry up and shut it, and he freaked out. So he runs in his house, and it's his mom and some dude is there, his name, they called him Q. And he tells Q about this. So I go upstairs and find out that he told Q about this, and I'm just like, I don't even know, what to do. I was desperate. The guy was like, I'll help you. I just got out the joint for the same thing. Just meet me such and such. So, no, he didn't say meet me. He said, what did he say? I don't even remember. He told me something. I don't remember what it was. No, he did say meet me. He said, meet me at my cousin's house and told me where to go. So, I ended up going to his cousin, driving to this house or whatever, and it was daylight by this time, and he told me, he was like, well, we'll just come back tonight since it's light outside or whatever, and park the car behind his cousin's house in this alley. And I ended up leaving it, and I never went back because I couldn't. I never met him. I never did anything. The people that lived around the block ended up calling the cops because the car had been parked there for so many days. It was abandoned, so I couldn't go back to it.
Okay. Now, at this point, your mother was reported missing. Who reported her missing?
Okay, she wasn't reported missing until like a week later. Okay. I want to say that it was her boyfriend. It was either her boyfriend or my cousin Lisa. I'm not exactly sure who it was that specifically reported her missing. I think it was her boyfriend.
Okay. So when the police and everyone came to remove the vehicle, did they discover the body there then, or they discovered it at the impound?
No, they had no idea. So they took the car to the impound lot, and then the impound lot sent a notice to her address saying that they had found her car. The mailman knew that she was missing, and he seen the little card and then called the police. Then the police notified.
This call is originating from an Ohio correctional facility and may be recorded and monitored.
Police notified the impound lot, and then that's when they searched the car and found her.
Now, here's the thing, because we talking about this is August. In August, right? And
they said it was August 30th, but it was actually the 27th that it happened.
Right, the 27th. Right. Okay, but they say August the 30th, right? So So you mean to tell me this body was there for 1 week and no one started to smell her body decomposing?
Apparently not. It was September 9th was when I got arrested. Mm-hmm. I don't know the specific date of when they found her, but I know at least a week had passed.
Okay.
Yeah, apparently not.
Wow. Now, how did you become suspect number one? How did that happen?
I actually wasn't. So my mother had gone to Cedar Point with some guy, and apparently this guy had tried to rape her on the way back, and she filed a report on him. Mm-hmm. Well, he was actually the first suspect.
Okay.
Well, when they came to the house for me, they wasn't coming to arrest me. They were actually coming to tell me and to question me. They were coming to tell me that they found her body and they were going to question me. But when the investigators came in the house, I was ready to go to prison. I couldn't take it anymore. Like, my conscience was eating me alive. I couldn't even leave the house because it was just eating me alive. So the minute that they came in the room, I stood up and said, I killed my mom. And they said, what? And I told them again, and I was ready to go to prison. I just wanted it to be over.
Okay, so you confessed right then and there on the spot to the police that you killed somebody?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Now.
Yeah, I never denied that.
Okay. So, when they arrested you, they got you to the police station or headquarters or whatever. At that time, did they, how long was it before they arrested Mr. Williams?
I want to say, I don't know for sure, but I want to say that it was a couple days maybe, because I tried to leave him out of the picture as much as possible. I ended up telling like 3 different stories. I don't even remember half of what I told them, but I was trying to leave him out of the picture as much as possible, because honestly, I was raised that you don't tell on people, and I felt like I was the one that was responsible and that it wasn't fair for him to go down for it too. So I did everything in my power to leave him out of it until the very end, when they said that they had found his DNA on a cigarette butt, that they knew he was there. I even lied and said that he had been to the house before doing laundry, and that might have been why his DNA was on a cigarette butt. Mm-hmm. But because of that DNA, they ended up arresting him, and I want to say it was maybe 2 days. I'm not positive, though.
Okay. Now you took.
It might have been even longer.
Okay, might have been even longer. Okay. Okay, you took a plea. Okay, you took a plea agreement to the second indictment charge, which was murder. Okay.
Yes.
You agreed to testify on your co-defendant, Mr. Williams, in exchange for your cooperation. You will be sentenced 15 years to life in prison. You were supposed to be sentenced on December 6, 2004, and your remaining charges were scheduled to be dropped. Before that could happen, you wrote to the court to withdraw your guilty plea. What made you change your mind, Miss Orta?
There was a couple factors. One, it was telling on him, period. Like I said, I was raised to keep your mouth shut or whatever. So I went back and forth with that. 2, he had written me a letter in county basically begging me that he had a family and kids and all of that and, whatever. And I felt bad because at the time I felt like I was completely responsible for it, and had I not have asked him to take me there, that he wouldn't even have been involved. I didn't think about the fact that he was a grown man, much older than me, and could make decisions for himself, and that he actually had priors. I didn't know that, first of all, and I didn't think. I guess I was thinking like, oh, I'm this ride or die chick, and, I'm going to take the charges, and, I did this, and, whatever. So it was basically my conscience behind the entire situation, and the fact that I felt bad. Like, I just didn't see that it was fair that two of us went down, you know what I'm saying, for something that I did.
Okay, that's fair enough. That was honorable of you. Honorable. I'm gonna give you that. Okay. No, it was honorable, but you know, like you said, he was a grown man,
Yeah.
much older than you, and he knew how to make decisions for his own because you didn't twist his arm to say, help me dispose of my mother's body. You didn't do that. And
Exactly.
you didn't tell him to rob your mother either. So come on now. He knew he was an opportunist and he saw opportunity and he didn't miss out on that opportunity.
Absolutely. And the me today would give anything to go back and rectify that situation, but
This call is originating from an Ohio correctional facility and may be recorded and monitored.
I feel, you know what I'm saying, that karma has probably caught up with him or will, you know, that's something that he has to live with.
Exactly. Now let's move a little bit further, okay? On March 11, 2005, you were sworn in on record. The prosecutor asked were you willing to testify, and you invoked your Fifth Amendment to the United States Constitution and refused to testify. Therefore, the
Yes.
remaining charges were reinstated, and those remaining charges were aggravated murder, aggravated robbery, aggravated burglary, tampering with evidence, grand theft of a motor vehicle, and theft. What made you take the Fifth Amendment?
Honestly, I don't even know. At that time, I had no idea what I was doing. My court-appointed attorneys were not helpful at all. I didn't have anybody there for me, giving me any type of guidance whatsoever. All that I knew was that I took my mother's life, and I felt at the time that I deserved to spend the rest of my life in prison, so I didn't even care. I didn't care, you know what I'm saying, what they gave me. I didn't care about anything other than just getting to prison and, you know, doing the time that I deserved.
Okay. Now, with all this being said, okay, your family today, okay, you do have a sister, am I right or wrong?
Yes.
And you guys have different fathers, same mother.
Yes.
Have you spoken to your sister, and if so, how does your sister feel about the situation?
I spoke to her probably about 2 years after I got here. She reached out to me, actually, and she was very sincere, and she told me that she did not agree with what happened, that she was upset about the situation, but that she understood because her and my mother, well, our mother, didn't have a relationship either. My mom gave her up to her father when she was 2. So she was never really raised with her. They didn't even for real know each other. But her and I had wrote for a little while, and I mean, it was decent, you know. I mean, we were catching up on old times, you know, telling, you know, stories of our life or whatever. And then she ended up getting married and had a child, and we kind of just like fell off. So I haven't spoke to her in many years, but it didn't end like on bad terms or anything. We just kind of like fell off.
Okay, just fell off. Now, is there any other family members like uncles or your uncles or aunts? How do they feel about you ever getting out again and being a productive citizen?
This call is originating from an Ohio correctional facility and may be recorded and monitored.
So I have my uncle who is my mother's brother, actually, and he's extremely, extremely supportive. He wrote me a letter for my clemency. He's very, very supportive. He's willing to do whatever, you know, to help me get out. I'm just a little reluctant to have him be like a voice in anything, only because he doesn't have a lot of nice things to say about my mother, and while she may not have been the perfect person, she also wasn't the worst person in the world either, and I just don't want her name to be, you know, rubbed in the mud anymore because she's no longer here, you know what I'm saying? And he has a lot of resentments towards her, and it's like every time we talk about it, he, you know, brings up, you know, all of the terrible things and doesn't ever really have anything nice to say. So it's like I don't really want him talking to the parole board because I don't want him bashing her in that way. You know what I'm saying? But he is very supportive of me getting out, 100%.
Right, I understand that, but at at any point do you think that by him speaking up, being your uncle, your mother's brother, and he's sitting down with the parole board telling them the truth, do you think that that will help you out, or at this point you just don't care that this is your mother and enough has been done and you don't want her name tarnished anymore? Is that it?
Well, honestly, I wasn't. So I do feel like there might be potential that he could help, but at the same time, I'm a very spiritual person, and I feel like I'm going to eventually get out, and I don't want it to be because they made my mother look like a bad person. And you know what I'm saying? Like, I want my story to be out there, yes, but I don't want her to look like she was this terrible person, because she really wasn't. Like, she wasn't a great mom, but there was a lot worse out there, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So he wasn't my first person to pick. Like, I had another, a friend of mine who actually, like, knows me, knows who I am now, that I was going to have speak to me. If they wanted to speak to him, of course, but he wasn't my first pick.
Okay. Now, I want to ask you something, because, you know, the judge, with the back and forth, it was like he wasn't pleased with the outcome of what was going on with the, you know, withdrawing and pleading the fifth. You wrote a second letter to the trial court requesting to withdraw your guilty plea, and a hearing was set for March 31st, 2005. How did the judge feel about all of this, of what happened before and now this?
I know that he denied it right away. It was probably like within a week, I think he denied it. I don't really remember. Like, I was so back and forth with everything. I feel that they were probably very frustrated with me because, like I said, I told 3 different stories, you know, trying to leave Joe out of it, and I was back and forth. I didn't know what to do. I was advised, you know, that I should take it to trial. So I think that's why I ended up writing the second letter asking to withdraw my guilty plea, because I think that I don't know if maybe it was a court-appointed lawyer or my husband at the time had told me to take it to trial. I don't really know. I don't even know why I wrote that letter.
Okay. Do you have any children?
I do. I have 3 and a grandchild.
Oh, congratulations, Granny.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Hey, being a grandparent is the most beautiful thing in the world. Trust me.
It is. I just wish I could see him right now.
That, like you said, that's common, you know, and it's going to be sweet. It's going to be sweet when you finally sit down and meet them. Now, how do your children feel about this whole thing? Because it was in the media. How do they feel?
Okay, so my oldest son is very supportive. He has been in my life the entire time. We have maintained a relationship, and he also wrote a letter to the parole board for me. He's very understanding. Like, he has some certain memories about, you know, his grandma or whatever, so he understands. He does not absolutely condone, you know, whatsoever, but he's very supportive of me. Now, my 2 younger children
This call is originating from an Ohio correctional facility and may be recorded and monitored.
were actually adopted, so I didn't get to have contact with them through their childhood. But when my middle son, Tony, turned 18, he reached out to me, so we now have a relationship. And my youngest one, Ashton, will be 18 in December, so I'm hoping he will reach out as well.
Okay, well, I'm quite sure if his 2 brothers are reaching out, he will too one day get the courage to reach out to you and want to know who you are and speak with you, because I'm quite sure his older brothers may have spoken about you to him. So,
yeah,
you know, that'll come. So, you know, you got to let it come on his time and when he's of age. So everything will be great, and the family will be locked back in. And you have a parole date coming up. Am I right or am I wrong?
Well, 2029 is my actual parole date. I just recently filed a clemency, but the parole board denied it, and their reasoning was that I could benefit from more time to clean up my institutional record, basically. But I haven't been in trouble in like 10 years.
Okay.
But I understand their point, because I was in trouble for 30 years, and I've only been out of trouble for like 12. So
Okay.
I get it. But it still has to go to the governor.
No problem. So if the governor, so the parole board can deny it all they want, but the governor has the last say.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's a good thing. Now let me ask you another question. We'll be jumping around a little bit, Quentin Tarantino style. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, Mr. Williams, have you heard anything more from him? Have you spoke to him, or have he wrote you anything?
So about, I want to say maybe 2 years. My timing might be a little off, but it was probably about 2 years after I got here. He actually wrote me a letter and sent me a picture of his penis. And I don't remember what the letter said, but it was very demeaning. And I think that I turned the letter in, or I may have sent it home. I want to say that I turned the letter in to administration here at the time. They kept the picture because we couldn't have pictures like that, but they sent me the contraband slip, so I sent all of that to somebody. It was so long ago I don't remember. But I have not tried to contact him. I heard that he was deceased, but I have no idea. I have no clue whatsoever.
Wow, pictures like that slip through the prison system in Ohio?
Oh yeah.
Not in Michigan.
Yeah.
Not in Michigan prison system. They tear that stuff up. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I was very surprised. I'm like, oh wow. I don't know why you're mad at me because you're free. That was my thought when I got the letter.
So basically,
I'm like, wow.
This call is originating from an Ohio correctional facility and may be recorded and monitored.
So basically, he sent you a letter being mad with you, and did he get any prison time at all, or?
He did 8 months in county, and that's it.
And
they had to let him go because all of the evidence was contaminated. Now, mind you, all of the DNA, the physical evidence they had was on him, but it was contaminated because people were in and out of the house before an investigation took place. Mm-hmm. So the only thing to convict him was my testimony.
Right, and they needed that testimony, and you refused to give them that testimony.
Yes.
Do you regret not giving your testimony?
I do, but not for the reasons that some people would think. Like, I don't regret it because I could have gotten less time. I regret it because I feel that in order for there to be complete justice on my mother's behalf, that he should have to pay for it as well.
That's fair enough. That's fair because, like you say, once again, he was there. He helped dispose of the body, and he stole your mother's jewelry.
And, that's the biggest thing. That's the thing that I think really bothers me the most is the jewelry part and his belongings. Oh, and he had stolen her checkbook. How they even implemented him, period, was he had stolen a checkbook and had some people try to cash checks. That's how he even came into the question, period. Because the people that had cashed these checks gave his name. And I didn't know anything about the checkbook. That's why earlier when I had mentioned that he had put the checkbook in there, the checkbook wasn't in there. I found out about that later on. But so, after I grew up and became more emotionally, mentally mature and just, realized, oh, wow, this was, I was really stupid. I was really messed up. All of these things, I realized, you know what? It almost feels like he had more part in it than what I did. I feel like he took advantage of the situation. Because my question is why didn't you stop me? You knew that I was doing this, so why didn't you stop me? Well, why? Because he had ulterior motives, while this was happening. He saw it a good opportunity to go ahead and take what he wanted while I was doing this. And with that is the reason, that's part of the reason why I regret, because I feel like, dude, you could have stopped me. You could have knocked me off of her. You could have, done something, and you didn't. That's probably what bothers me the most.
Most definitely. Now, this is what I want to ask you, because I got a couple more questions I want to ask you, but I want to ask you this one first, Mandy. Okay, after I release this interview to the Real World Podcast family, I have a new thing that I'm doing with my members only. It's called You Be the Judge. And you be the judge means, okay, after we listen to the show and I have you back on live during the live stream, and I let the members only ask you questions, and we'll go, and it'll be live, and you can answer the questions of the ones that I ask you. How you feel about doing that?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't have anything to hide.
What are your plans for once you get out of prison? What are you gonna do to help become an asset to the community versus being a liability to the community? What are your plans and your goals when you get out?
Okay, so my initial plan upon release is I am paroling to Millersburg, Ohio, and I'm actually going to live in an Amish town for a little while. I have a friend who owns a horse farm, and she does like equine therapy and riding lessons, and she breeds horses and dogs and like all kinds of stuff. Her and her family does. But I'm going to stay there with her. She's a Christian lady, and she is going to teach me some different skills. And I'm already a part of the Justice League, so my first plan is to get involved with them and then kind of build a network around there so I can begin to help people inside of here and people that have been released. Long term, though, my goal is to really own a wellness center, and I want to gear it towards younger adults, like teenagers, through like age 25, 30, because I feel like a lot, especially juveniles for sure, kind of just get brushed under the rug. I feel like parents today try to treat their children as kids or adults more than kids. So I really want to focus on working with them.
Okay. So now, when you first got the prison or whatever, right? How long did it take you to realize, okay, I don't want to do what I did before, because you do have a extensive criminal history. That's your past. So what just made you say, okay, I don't want to do this no more. I want to change for the best.
Okay, so when I was in county, I did 8 months in county, and that's actually when I realized, like, I just can't live this way anymore. But I honestly didn't really know what to do at the time. I got into the Bible, I started reading self-help books and all of that, and all of that kind of planted seeds for me. Well, when I got here, I was very cautious with the type of people that I hung around. I kind of stayed to myself. I didn't really get involved in a lot of things because at the time I was a high-level security, so there wasn't a lot of options. But I, like I said, did a lot of self-help studying. Now, my actions and my thinking process was still a lot the same, so it took me about 5 years to really understand that, okay, the problem is the way that I think, because I was always taught that I was a specific person. I was a specific way. So I believed that, and I really thought that the cards that I was dealt was the hand that I had to play. I didn't understand that I could change, who I was. And when I finally realized that was when I started to transform. So it was about between 5 and 7 years after I was here.
Okay, that's a good thing. At least it didn't take you forever, because some people, it takes them forever to get it. Because like I tell people, like being in prison, you meet some of the coolest people in prison that are good people. And it was a gentleman. I was listening to.
This call is originating from an Ohio correctional facility and may be recorded and monitored.
I was listening to a young lady's live stream today by the name of Sarah Indipity, and her husband's name is Brandon, and he's been to prison, and he was basically saying that people in prison who's been in prison, they look at life totally different when they get out, and and I thought about this guy. He's right, because when I came home, I was like, hey, I got to leave that over there and come over here to not go back over there anymore. So that was, I looked at that as what he said was very accurate. So
Absolutely.
And you agree with that, right?
Absolutely. And I think the prisons make a big difference too, because I was actually blessed to come to this prison because there's a lot of opportunities. There was, the administration at the time was very empowering. We had a warden who was phenomenal, and she was all about women's empowerment, and they just really provided a lot of good programs and groups to get into. And I think had I have gone somewhere where they didn't offer that, I may not have changed. I may not have never have gotten it, like some people say. But it really takes, your environment is huge. So I can understand how some people never get out of that mentality because, here in this institution, we have 3,000 women, and in some of the dorms, it's crazy. There's drugs, you know what I'm saying? People act like they do on the streets. I am fortunately in an honor dorm where people don't act like that. But had I have been stuck out there my entire sentence, who knows? I probably wouldn't have changed. We're creatures of habit. So you have to surround yourself with positive people and people moving in a forward direction in order to really change. And you have to take ownership for your actions. That's the biggest thing. You have to get off of your own pedestal and say, you know what, hey, I screwed up. It is what it is. I got to do better now.
Exactly. So with that being said, do you take full responsibility for your actions of killing your mother?
1,000%. Absolutely.
Okay. So, and that's great because, like I said, just talking to you, you seem like, okay, you're not the person that the media got a lot of the stuff wrong on. So let's put that out there. They got a lot of stuff wrong, and you corrected it, and I salute you for that. So let's go on to something else. Now, let me ask you this. When you first came to prison, and your case was kind of a high-profile case, did you catch any static from any inmates there?
No, not at all. There's, my case coming here to this large prison wasn't as high-profile as other cases. There was a few rumors that had gone around. They said that I had chopped her body up and, things like that, but nobody had, ever said anything directly to me. It just was never like that here,
Great. That's a beautiful thing. That's
Yeah.
Okay, so what else here? We're going to go into, because we pretty much, we covered everything in the first two. We just throwing in a little fillers to fill in here. Okay. Now, let me ask you this, okay. When you were on the outside, did you have a high school diploma or you didn't have a high school diploma?
I got my GED when I was 17. I ended up getting emancipated because I did about 4 years in a juvenile facility. And when I got out, my mother and I, we just could never live together. So my parole officer agreed to have me emancipated if I got my GED, so I did that when I was 17.
Okay, and so there, because like I say, you're in the newspaper quite a bit. So you were in that I know of quite a bit. Just sitting there talking, because once upon a time, let's just say the media was not your friend at one point in time. And now that you're there and they got to know who you are, it seems like they became a friend because they were putting you in the newspaper and everything. How do you feel about the media now with that situation?
I don't really have anything bad to say. I just feel like, everything in this world is just so political, and you just never really know what to believe anymore. The problem is I don't completely blame the media for the simple fact that I kind of brought that on myself, at the time when I caught my case, because I wasn't the greatest person. I had a long history. While the facts that they put out there aren't true, and I don't agree with that, I feel like they...
This call is originating from an Ohio correctional facility and may be recorded and monitored.
I feel like they shouldn't be allowed to do things like that, but unfortunately, that's kind of what our world has resulted in. It's just something that we can't control, but I try to not even pay attention to anything at all. When I don't even watch the news or anything because I just know that there's just so much inaccurate information. But I mean, I just do what I can to be who I am today, and one of my main goals was to just turn my reputation around, and I feel like I've done a pretty good job of that. So.
Okay, yeah, because I'm a firm believer in giving second chances because
Absolutely.
they always say inmates they don't deserve a second chance. Let them all rot in jail, or when they get out of jail, just ignore them, and and then when you do stuff like that, then that inmate ends up reoffending
Yeah.
and going back to prison. And that's one thing we want to do. We don't want inmates to feel that, okay, they have to reoffend and become repeat offenders and keep going back to prison, because there's a lot of things that you can learn while you're in prison. Now that you guys got the tablets and, the law libraries are still in some states, and, you can take that and apply it to everyday living out here and come out here and you can live a great life and get a career going, because what you're saying that you're going to do, it seems like it's going to be great.
Yeah, and I have a lot of great connections. That was one thing that I do in here is I am involved in anything that comes through these gates. I don't care if it's something that interests me or not, because I believe in building a network. And in order for me to be successful, that's exactly what I have to do. So I have a huge network outside of here, and one thing that I wanted to say is prison is a mindset for real.
Mm-hmm.
We all know that there's a stigma behind us because we've been incarcerated or whatever, but at the end of the day, it's not the world's fault. It's not anybody else's fault if we can't go out there and succeed. Yes, it can be difficult for some. I think that there are a lot of disadvantages, but we learned how to make it in the prison system, and this is probably one of the hardest places to succeed. So if you can do it in here, there's no reason why you can't do it out there. It's all a matter of how bad you want it, for real.
Exactly, and now these states are making it much more easier to get your record expunged when you come out of prison, so that you will be, as when someone's looking you up for a job, it'll be like, okay, you never had a felony a day in your life. So, and I think in Ohio, it's up to 5 felonies. How many felony convictions do you have, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, let's see. I think on this charge is like 7?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think in this sentence I got like 7 of them.
Okay, I think I think if it all happened at one, because here in Michigan, if it all happened the same day,
in one crime.
Yeah, crime, it counts as only one crime.
Yeah.
Because I have a crime like that. I had 4 or 5 felony convictions, but it on my record, because it happened that one day and it was dealing with that one crime within 24 hours.
Yeah.
It counts as an expungement. It counts as only one conviction. But in the state of Michigan, right now I'm going through a lawyer, because I have violent felonies, and if you have violent felonies, assault with weapons or anything dealing with a weapon, which I have a few of those, you will not be eligible to have your record expunged. But as I was speaking with a lawyer, he said, no, there's a way around that, and I'm going to talk to a lawyer tomorrow about that situation and getting my record expunged. So,
This call is originating from an Ohio correctional facility and may be recorded and monitored.
I think the great thing for people like us is that it seems like these days nobody in the world wants to work, so there's all of these jobs available to us that we should be all right.
Yes, because I know a couple felons that came home from the penitentiary on parole, and during the pandemic that was going on, they working at Ford Motor Company, and the people at Ford told one of my guys, hey, look, don't worry, when the pandemic is over, you got a job here. You're permanently hired in because you wanted to work and you didn't want to stay home. So the pandemic pretty much is over, and he's in there. He's working. He's been there for going on 2 years now. So I'm happy for him, and he served about He served 8 years in the penitentiary. So he's home now, and he's in Ford Motor Company right now working. Is it Ford or GM? I want to say it's Ford. It might be GM. I forgot which one. Which one? I think it's Ford because he got the big truck, the
Yeah.
big truck thing. So I think it's Ford. So I think he's at Ford. But I'll
Yeah.
find
Either
out.
way, it's a good job.
Exactly, because he's making almost like $25 an hour, and
Yeah.
and he's happy with that. He has a son now. His son is when he came home, he met a beautiful woman while he was locked up in prison. They got a son together, and they're married now, and they have a
That's
nice
great.
home. And son is on the football team with the little pal thing. So, this is like he said, this is a life that you could never have told him that he would be living.
Absolutely.
So hey, it's out there for you as well when you come home. You know what I'm saying? So just think about it. When you come home, there's a lot of jobs and programs in play that you can get your record expunged and you can go out here and get anything that you want. But I'm quite sure the media presence that you had, not the bad media presence, but the good media presence that you have had, is going to take you a long way when you get out here, because there's going to be a lot of women that want to work with you and want to give you that opportunity. And you know why they're going to want to give you that opportunity? Because they're going to say, wow, this woman went to prison for this bad crime, but she's been in prison doing so much good. So if we get her here working with us, that's going to make us look good. So
Absolutely.
So it's going to be good for you no matter how you cut it when you get out of here. It's not the same like it used to be back in the day. You go to prison, don't nobody want you, nobody want to hire you. It's totally different today. I guarantee you that.
Yeah.
Guarantee you that. Well, listen, Erica, I want to thank you for sitting down and giving us this interview. But before we leave,
Absolutely. I love it.
I want you to give your information. And that's if you want to, because a lot of the women here, they like to write some of the inmates and, talk to them on the one-on-one level. So if you want to give your information, please do that.
All right. So it's Erica Orta, 60742 at ORW 1479 Collins, it's Collins Avenue, Marysville, Ohio, 43040.
Okay, can they also write you on JPay as well?
Yep, I'm on JPay too. Absolutely.
So listen, just take her inmate number, and she's in Ohio. It's going to ask you the state of Ohio. Put her inmate number in there where it asks you the inmate number, and then boom, save her, and then there you go, and you can start writing her. You got to buy the e-stamps to write her, and it's more quicker that way, like instant.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
and I'm quite sure you would rather receive the emails over the letters, but either or is good. So like I say, thank you very much, and I appreciate you for
I
working with
appreciate
us.
you.
And I appreciate you for also coming on to say that you will be a part of You Be the Judge, because that's going to be great.
Yes, absolutely. Anything that I can do to inspire people, to help them understand, or anything, I absolutely love doing it. So, whatever I can do to help.
Great. Well, we're giving this a wrap, and we out of here, ladies and gentlemen. Peace and love, and thank you for listening.